Yeah. Kind of relaxing right now, so camera's gonna be off. So let me see. I'm gonna show y'all something. But before I do that, let me first jump into the fact of what I really want to discuss here is give honor to source. Greetings to all. Oh my gosh. Greetings to all. I had a little moment. I was over here like, I took a shower. What is that smell? You know, sometimes you be like, oh man, I forgot to put that little deodorant on. You know, judge your mama. No, I'm just kidding. But anywho, greetings to all. Blessings to all. Let's give honor to the source, the creator, the ancestors, known and unknown, for making this possible. I'm just sitting here relaxing. I was like, I ain't gonna be before y'all long, but I wanna bring up something that I've been just sitting with. It's just gonna be a brief little message on this beautiful Sunday, relaxing Sunday. While I have this moment to myself. The biggest theme I realized, you know, I know a lot of you heard me talk about the healing journey, or, you know, lately I've been talking about the generational, I don't know why generational gap, but the generational, the generational wealth transfer. And I've been getting a lot of clarity on things in regards to this, especially from what I'm going to pull up here in a minute. I'm going to just go already get that set, but basically, let me see, where did I send that to? So yeah, before I let y'all listen to
this, I don't know, I'm going to tell you.
Okay, before I let y'all listen to this, I'm going to just, again, dive into more deeper what I'm expressing. So yeah, I'll let y'all watch that before I actually, because I realized the screencast, the video, the music can actually play or the audio. So before I let y'all listen to that, I'll just make this smaller for now. So yeah, the biggest thing right now, when I was telling you about the big transferring wealth, and I've been stating that it's not just physical. Before anything is physical, it's spiritual first. And you know, the facts on this is, if you really generally look at your life, you know, self-realization or self-realistically, or, you know, really look at your life. And lately I've been talking to people who, you know, I'll talk to some women sometime, and they'll tell me, you know, when we just have a little, you know, a holistic conversation, which, you know, which is beautiful, where, again, if you've been following me, you know, there were times where I couldn't even have, now I've always been a conversationalist or very communicative person. Other than that, what I had to learn is how more emotional in tune I become. And the maturity and evolution that has come with that. What I become more aware of with myself is with these conversations now, and how they build upon trust, and then how women honor attention, you know, and one of those, you know, simple attributes of them, by them being ruled by Venus, you know, the planet of love, you know, attention, and, you know, is one of the most important things or traits that they like, or that they simply just who they are. So again, I've noticed, like, when I'm listening to certain conversations, I'll hear a behavior pattern or ancestral pattern that they'll have. Let's say, I know some of you can relate, where you have a mother who may have had I feel like this is so distracting right now. You have a mother or someone who has who may have had, let's say, you know, this is not everyone, but 5 kids, and all of a sudden this mother had 5 kids. Her daughter has 5 kids. But what I've noticed is when I'm listening and I have a sit down learning more about women, I'm gonna tell you the beauty of listening and being an active listener. I've noticed, like, through my experience of what was unresolved with the mother wound of my mother, I realized, like, sometimes the ego can want to be noticed more than being an active listener. And I feel like that's what some men battle with, is that the ego gets involved. And you see that generationally, when people want to the resistance of evolving or changing, or their mindset, or healing in itself, the ego gets involved, the pride and so forth. So what I've recognized, I was like, at a time before I start to really become more aware of my own actions and my own patterns, the more in tune I became with myself, I start to recognize this in other people. And I was starting to be like observing. It's almost like it's so interesting and inspiring, because when you listen to their stories, or when you listen to where they're coming from, you automatically, if you sit quiet enough, you'll be able to let people show you not only just their actions, their words and how they speak and everything. And it's a pattern, again, goes all the way back to child development, and even before that, even when they was in the wombs of their mother. And so we think just surface level sometimes, where people just, they look like their mother. But some mothers and fathers be like, man, you act just like your mama, or you're just like this person. And that comes from a place of, sometimes I realize, like, a place of anger, resentment, or something. I always go beyond the surface, like, why do they feel that way? I've even come out sometimes in connections and be like, man, you just like your mom, you do just like this. And in reality, we are not just as much like them, but we do have patterns where we want to ignore. And my awareness have come to the fact of, please tell me I got some chapstick, yes. My awareness, I become to see from my own experience of how we are, like, recycling not only ancestral patterns or behaviors, but this isn't a bad thing. This is, we tend to look at it like, it's a horrible experience, or it's this and that. When in reality, it's the energy unfolding. It's like a lotus flower. It's like a flower. It's unfolding from the root, meaning like from which we come from, whether it's our mothers and their mothers' mothers. The beauty of this unfolding is that which is unseen to the natural eye. So that is a spiritual sense. So when I'm speaking about the transfer of emotional, mental, whether it's disorder, dis-ease, discomfort, that's also still a beauty behind the spiritual aspect of that. This is where the unseen comes into the play. The emotion, the things ancestrally that most people don't and aren't aware of, or don't want to see. And this is where pride and ego comes in, and people aren't willing to evolve and see their own shit. They're not willing to look in the mirror. And this is where you have, as I've spoken before, of, if you want to use the term boomers or baby boomers or the generations before. It's not to say all people did not want to evolve and so forth, but there's always been resistance, y'all. There's always been resistance. There's always been resistance to people not wanting to evolve past the fact of them being not wanting to change or being stagnant, let's say that. And then even in your connections, let's say relationships and so forth, or anything in life, you're also dealing with people who have their own individual life, who have their own family experiences, some who do and some who don't. And you don't know what type of stagnant energy that they're dealing with. When I look at my father and my mother, I'm a representation of what is unfolding. That shit is amazing. I am a representation of both matriarchal and patriarchal, whether of unfinished business, whether my mom and dad had unfinished business with this person, and then before, when they made me, they had unresolved traumas, they had unresolved issues, they have unresolved shit with whatever and whomever. And this is why, I will hear, I will see what do they call it? No, hear like a lot of elders or those who are, you know, spiritualists and so forth, you know, mention past life regression or mention things in the past, or even mention how sometimes when people are cursed or generational curses, that curse in itself can be something unresolved, or something that was through another lifetime, or a great grandmother or great grandpa who treated a certain person a certain way, and you don't know what type of things are protecting them. You don't know what type of spirits. You don't know what people are, you know, dealing with. And I feel like on a grander scale, that's what's playing out right now. It's how some people, you don't know who they are, you don't know what they're involved with and so forth, and you don't know the lengths they'll go to, even whether not harming you physically, but, you know, receiving justice in the spiritual aspect. So there are people who don't have to lift a hand, but there are also people, no matter creed or color, or no matter gender or so forth, that have done things. When I look at the fact of like how I see how certain people's life is, it's not always the case, but sometimes I'll be looking deeper. That's just me. I'll be always like, yo, I wonder what they did during their pregnancy for that child to come that way, or what was their involvement with the father, or, you know, so many things, or, you know, a lot of things. As I've spoken before, this transfer of wealth has a lot to do with a lot of us millenniums, or people from 1980s, early 80s, 81 and so forth to 1996, a lot of prioritizing our well-being. This also makes us sit the fuck down and also recognize what we have unresolved, and also what our mothers and fathers have unresolved. Like I said, I am the only man that I know of outside of religion, outside of, you know, things that people want to get into. And, you know, my perspective, I feel like a lot of those things was teaching us to be passive aggressive. I did not say it wasn't supportive. I'm just talking about the trauma behind the experience, even with said people and demographics, and how it was forced. And if you don't believe in them, then they denounce you, or they don't want no parts in that. You know, I was telling my partner that, I was like, yo, I have unresolved shit around my grandmother treating me, or someone treating me, you know, disrespectfully, and not valuing me, because I do not want it. You know, as I start to get more into my spiritual you know, things, or get more to knowing myself, and start to recognize the depths of who I am, and learning things ancestrally, I start to dive deep and question, like, why is it that it's always this Jesus character, or why is this always this thing? And, you know, is it just this generation, or has it always been that? I ask questions. And so with that, there's unresolved things around with y'all I've spoken about before, that y'all don't know about other people's experiences. Y'all don't know what people have dealt with when it comes to how they were introduced to religion. I don't know all the details of how people were introduced to their culture or belief system and so forth. So it may not be the same for me as it was for you. But I know from experience, I was expressing to my partner, I'm like, bro, you got people that call me everything but a child of the Most High, or, you know, or a child of God, however you want to use a term or terminology, just because I didn't want to follow certain things. But then again, I will hear about, you know, secretively, how people will go to the witch doctors or medicine women, or, you know, psychics or whatever it is, to tamper into stuff. You know, you will hear through the grapevine. I thought none of it. But then I start to recognize, like, okay, you know, when you're young, or, you know, when you get of age, and then mama and grandma start to tell you certain stuff, you start to hear stories. I'm like, so why do y'all follow religions? Is it something that you are afraid of? Are you afraid of yourself? Are you afraid of the fact that this has always been in our lineage? To practice certain teachings, or to practice, you know, spirituality, however that is, you know, conjuring, some may call it. Are you afraid of that? Are you afraid of yourself? Are you running from the very women who, you know, when it comes to what they call the root doctor, you know, what's the other term? You know, other practices and stuff. When you're talking about ancestrally, that people who have migrated, or, you know, who once lived here, and, you know, the indigenous people, all these things, why are you really consumed, or why are you really practicing what you're practicing? And even if you're doing it, there's still other people who still hid their hand, and that was one of the things that they still use spiritually. You know, certain books or certain things, they still use it as a tool. So again, there's a lot of things that deeper coming back home to a lot of things within ourselves, a lot of things that's happening is allowing us to come back home to who we are and to coming back home to why there was resistance amongst our lineage. Me diving more deeper into the fact of things that are unresolved. That's a big thing. Before I get into that, I'm gonna let y'all hear this video with this sister talks about this right here.
Supposed to be better than your mother and your grandmother. And you are supposed to be better than your mother and your grandmother and your great-grand. You're supposed to be better. You're supposed to make better decisions. You're supposed to look better. You're supposed to act better. You're supposed to know more. If you're not doing that, and if they're trying to keep you from doing that, they're doing it wrong. Each generation is supposed to improve upon the next. Okay? Just like a car. Each car design is supposed to be an improvement of the last one. So, if they're not helping you improve, redirect your energy and improve yourself. We're supposed to get better every generation. You're not supposed to stay the same or get worse. Some parents don't want you to surpass them, or they're mad at themselves for making dumb idiot mistakes, and they don't want you to surpass them because it's gonna discredit them as someone that's knows what they're doing. So the best thing you can do is change paths and courses to become something that your mother could never become, and put your goals on that. And understand why women, and especially mothers, do this to their daughters, because they've made big mistakes and they don't want you to outshine or do better than them because it makes them, you know what I mean? And it's their ego. So just do better than them because it makes them look like they messed up. You know what I mean? And it's their ego. So just make yourself look good to where you know you look good, and you don't need validation from anyone else, not even your mother.
That's huge.
And go out there and become better. Sprinkle, sprinkle. I don't know. I'm gonna tell you.
So again, this is a video I saw earlier, and the reason why I'm bringing that to the attention now, because when you talk about unresolved, this is a big issue, a big theme, which I came across another video where it was talking about the dangerous aspect of shame. Y'all have a lot of people, we have a lot of elders previously in these generations where they're coming to the self-realization that they carry a lot of fucking shame. They carry a lot of shame and guilt. And this is why I've told you how they will try to make you feel guilty or want your life to be as hard as theirs, because their pride and their ego and the shame and guilt that they carry around the certain decisions that they made, that they didn't feel that they lived up to their fullest potential, or they didn't fulfill their dreams or other goals. And that's why I've said before in previous videos how people sometimes vicariously live through their kids, and this builds resentment. Sometimes you have mothers and fathers or certain people who are jealous of their children, and sometimes they're unknowingly knowing what they're doing, or unconsciously creating this. It's like you're creating a monster, because that shame within themselves, it's like the narcissism aspect of projecting that onto someone, or wanting to make you feel devalue you because you're not following their footsteps, or you're not following in what they deem as success, or you're not doing what they feel is valuable, so they devalue you. And then they do this in a way to where they have others, whether it's in your family that you grew up in, and have them in a way try to mold them into doing the same narcissistic behaviors, basically devaluing you and your character because you made certain decisions. And it's a way of not taking accountability. It's another way of not acknowledging who they are and their mistakes, and so forth. So whenever you make one, or whenever you go down the road and something doesn't align with what they do, you're if you want to use a term wrong, or you're, you know, basically discrediting how, you know, or doing, basically emphasizing how what you did was so much more bigger. And so again, this is what, again, we have dealt with, or people who have been dealing with unconsciously, or a lot of these people who are masking this. You know, this is some of our parents and grandparents and so forth, who again, I'm not you know, discrediting a lot of what they have accomplished, or if they did or didn't. It's more so how people approach it, how people go about it. And, you know, what she mentioned in there, again, how we're supposed to be better. You know, I told someone, it's like, you know, you hear someone, and this is someone, insecurities that are very loud. You think you better than me. You think you know, and you know, you hear that saying goes like, no one, not no one, but I've noticed this with, you know, there's a saying that goes, everyone wants to see you doing better, but never better than them. You know, and the funny thing is that we are supposed to be better, like she mentioned. It's just like, that's what evolution is. Iron sharpens iron. And a lot of us don't want to accept that a lot of people in our life, they're not iron. They're fucking copper or some type of cheap ass metal, and they're not willing. And this is why it goes back to how a lot of elders gatekeep shit. A lot of them gatekeep stuff and have gatekept shit. So they have tried to gatekeep stuff and tried to keep people away from really knowing that we're supposed to evolve past what they've done. And that's the beauty of things with that, you know. One moment. That's the beauty of things. Okay, so let me come back to that. So again, that's the beauty of things. Is that that's what I'm here to do. I'm not finna fucking gatekeep shit. I'm not finna gatekeep shit. And what I mean by that is like, that's the importance of being a bridge from the dysfunctionality, as I mentioned before, or from the prideful ass people, whether it's your preacher, pastor, politician, anything in any type of level and all like that. Like this, the veil is lifted. This is the age of Aquarius, or whatever you want to call it. Some people say it's the age of whatever. I don't know. I don't care, honestly. It's the age of information, the golden age. Some people say the enlightenment, or, you know, basically the return of what I call the divine mother, or what source calls a divine energy, or, you know, the ancient energy, or, you know, the balancing, the rebalancing of, you know, the patriarchal and matriarchal, or, you know, the from a distorted way of being with the mother and father, or the false mother energy. Is now balancing that which within ourselves. That's where the healing comes from. That's where the accountability that a lot of our parents and grandparents were running from. They were hoarding. And like she said, you're supposed to look better, be better, and all that other stuff. And when I see a lot of people, again, it's no judgment. It's just acknowledge, like, they really look like what they've been through. They really do, because they're hoarding stuff in. They're keeping stuff in. And due to their distorted ways, due to their unresolved shit, they keep stuff away. You know, they're not willing to sit down and talk. I've experienced this. I've tried. I used to try with my mom all the time. I used to try with my grandmother. I've gotten, you know, you get to where you get, when you get what they're going to give you. That's the only thing you can do. But at the same moment, it's not a consistent or persistent thing, because when you look at their dynamics, when you look at the dynamics of some people, they don't want to be better. They don't want to be a better mother. They don't want to be a better grandmother. They don't want to be a better father. You know, a lot of things personally were, from my experience, my father had, just like me, like a mother, he has a son and a daughter. You know, and I have a son and a daughter. Only difference is that I'm choosing to be better in my approach. I'm choosing to be a better man, or, you know, focus on my well-being. That's a choice, y'all. And that shit doesn't, you know, that shit doesn't mean doesn't come with roadblocks, because just because there's a detour doesn't mean that you're still not on the tour in life. Your life is a tour. Doesn't mean you're still not enjoying, or just because there's a roadblock, that means you got to be redirected in life. That means you got to revitalize things. You got to revisit things, like the things that I'm speaking about. Review mirror, just to go drive forward again. Just to, you know, that's what a detour is in life. You got to look, you thought you can go this way. At the same moment, that's when you have to create another way. And some people, some of these elders are a representation. They are detours in your life. You thought that you supposed to get what you're supposed to give for them and be redirected to a whole other path that's least traveled. That's what I had to accept. And so with that, most people are afraid to go down the path that's least traveled because they have to actually be their fucking self. They actually have to be authentic. They actually have to go within themselves and do something completely different and use the tools that they've had. And when those who don't recognize that, that's why I keep telling y'all the greatest wealth transfer is happening right now. Because you're thinking you just get, everybody's so fixated on getting the money and being well off. Okay, you can get all that shit. You can get an inheritance. You can get all that. But I've always tell y'all that you don't just inherit money. You inherit. You don't know what came with that. I was expressing to someone, I was like, when you realize some of these people, how they came into what you think they built and what they inherited, for someone else that was on the other receiving end of that, they could experience pain and a lot of stuff from how that parent or how that grandparent or so forth came into that. I told y'all about that shit. So when you think you inheriting something, you don't even consider the fact of what did your grandfather, great grandmother, so forth go through to get there. So for one, that perspective is going to be completely fucking different, especially for me as a darker man in this country. I'm not finna sit here and be like, oh gosh, my mom and dad and all, poverty was just not, no. I'm not going to be like, poverty was just a part of my lineage. Absolutely not. Because once you start to dive deep and learn who you are, abundance is your birthright. It has always been before you were even born. Prosperity is being your birthright. Prosperity runs in your veins. Authenticity runs in your fucking veins. Integrity, morals, and principles. That was just somewhere along down the line, somebody or something, whether spiritually, vices or whatever, someone just allowed the darkness just to consume them and afraid to come out of it. Or somebody got greedy or someone got selfish. Some of y'all come from the same lineage, no matter color and creed. Some of y'all got vices. But don't ever think that, I always remind people, someone else's prosperity or abundance is someone else's curse. That man may not look at life like you do. That's why I sit here and protect myself and my energy, because I realize, like, once you start to become more in tune and you move the way you move, you realize, like, it says, be ye, not conform to this world, like, be in the world but not of it. And once I got that shit, I started to realize, like, not to be of it. I'm like, whoa, because for one, this world ain't my world. Nothing here belongs to me. And then for one, my world don't look like this world, because my reality is not the same as other people's reality. My universe ain't the same as other people's universe. There are people right now where I realize all the shit that they accumulated, they won't tell you the depths. I don't say they have to feel guilty and ashamed, but a lot of them carry guilt and shame. If I could sit here and tell myself, I'm like, you telling me that people, you got to be very dark, wicked within yourself, or just unrighteous for y'all to want to accumulate or be a part of something where y'all don't even know the unrighteous in the vices, in the energy that comes with certain people here in this fucking world. Y'all don't even know the depths of that, and wondering why a lot of us don't progress the way we supposed to, because what be ye not conform? Do not conform. I don't even know the verse, but I gotta look more into it. It's like the Most High source uprooting you from a country, from a place, purposefully, because there's unrighteousness being bestowed upon people, or people have things that they have not resolved inwardly and outwardly. If you think that karma misses anybody, if you want your lineage and people to experience dharma, then everyone here is not exempt from the fact of what they have to resolve spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and in the physical. That is the greatest wealth transfer, or the grandest wealth transfer, when you realize that you are resolving why your lineage hasn't experienced peace, why your lineage hasn't progressed financially, Why your lineage hasn't progressed emotionally? When you see the mental disorder, why your lineage? Why both? Why is my mom the way she is? Why is my father the way he is? And that's been the biggest theme around my life right now, is things that are unresolved. And when I really sit down, I started becoming aware I am much better. Just because someone may seem like, oh, well, this isn't happening for them, or they don't have this and they don't have this, and I'm like, bro, I'm making better and more sound and aware conscious decisions intentionally, not just for myself, yes, but also for my kids as well. Because where I was getting at is that's the importance of this, is that what I'm doing is so it ripples to my kids. The things that wasn't resolved with my father, who has 2 kids, I realized, like, these are the passive aggressive parents. These are the passive aggressive generations who won't sit down, who are quick to tell you, suck it up, move on, put the past behind you. Yeah, you want to put it behind you because you've been doing it for so fucking long that you don't realize the more you keep putting it behind you, it's just like collecting something. And when someone brings it to you, you just throw it behind you, and this shit just building up in a bag, or you just throwing it in a bag, or you just throwing it behind you. But it's like throwing something, and it's like by the time you turn around and look at it, this hill of shit that you unresolved, or certain things you haven't faced, has become bigger than you. That's what's been happening. A lot of our elders and so forth, they are carrying along like baggage of unresolved emotions, memories, and so many things they never discussed. And some of them did get the opportunity, but most of them, they don't want to sit down and talk about it. So again, that's the beauty of this. Like I told you, I'm recognizing now, not only with my father and the father wound, I'm like, bro, you chose not to sit down and face shit. You ran from accountability. It's so quick for people to say, well, the woman of my kids, she wouldn't let me see this, and the mother, some women say he not doing this and he not doing that. But boy, when I start to really look at this energy of a lot of people, y'all are doing the same shit your mom and dad did. For some of y'all, or some of y'all have a lot of resentment or unresolved things within y'all that y'all quick to project on someone else, and in reality it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with what you have not resolved in certain relationships, or with the relationship with your mother and father, or what your mother and father had unresolved with their mother and father. I'm telling y'all, and that's the biggest thing for me. I was like, I asked myself, what is it that I need to resolve, or is unresolved within me, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that's playing out in my physical reality right now, that's playing out in my world right now? What do I need to resolve? And when you sit there, and I'm talking about no distractions by people, or sometimes it can come up differently for you. When you have memories of people, the things that you haven't processed, a dysregulated nervous system, and once you recognize a lot of these elders and parents and stuff, they've been pushing this shit down for years through their work life. They've been pushing this shit away through religion. They've been pushing that shit down through substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, and so forth. And once you realize that you've been doing the same shit, and how you see that all of this is a cycle of life. I'm not saying you got to be perfect. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. All I'm saying is you want to live a prosperous, more harmonious and balanced and secure and stable life. I realize, like I'm telling myself, I can acknowledge the fact that, man, you know what? I'm really living out something that I unconsciously picked up from my fucking father. But that's when I changed, when I realized when he made a decision not to be there, not to make the effort, I sat with it. I was very angered. I had rage come up. I was angered because I felt like a lot of things he could have done could have prevented me from being where it's making certain decisions, being where I am. But I couldn't hold that guilt or shame around why it is that I made those decisions. And see, once we accept that and feel it, then you'll be able to evolve past the fact of, you know what, I need to feel this, I deserve to feel, I need to feel this, but I didn't deserve to be treated that way. I didn't deserve, it's certain things we have to remind ourselves, I didn't deserve that. I didn't. Because that's where you give yourself grace. Then you don't beat yourself up over the fact that like you couldn't control the fact that they wanted to stay away as a father or mother or as a guardian. They wanted to do that. They made that decision. They made an excuse. So now you don't give yourself an excuse for showing up for yourself. And that's the beauty of resolving the traumas, the memories, and so forth. And you no longer have to carry that burden. It's okay to honor that emotion. Because what end up happening is that you'll bleed onto your kids. And that's what I realized I was doing. I was bleeding onto everyone else around me through my actions. Blaming people for my impulse. Like, I went on for years, like, with that until I became more aware. I wanted to say, my mama did this, my mama did that. Fuck that shit. What can I do about it now? She did what she did, so what? Now I get to move on. Now my life is more peaceful, with or without people. Same thing with this. I have to recognize the fact that with my father wound and unresolved things, okay, this man didn't teach me financial literacy. Okay, I can learn it now. Okay, I didn't learn how to be structured and balanced. I had to go through the fact of meeting someone and then creating kids and so forth. And what that saying goes of like, you got to put the horse before the carriage. I had to go through those moments and acknowledge personally what it is to be unstable. Instability, not knowing where my kids are going to live, not knowing, the fact of, I didn't have no one teaching me what structure was or stability, financial literacy, not even just financial literacy, it's just how to be at home with myself first before I can even have a home externally. That's my biggest thing that, again, I tell people, it's about coming home to yourself for a lot of us. Because a lot of those homes and a lot of those, whether you want to call them broken home or dysfunction, a lot of those people I knew had homes. But what went on in those homes was not of integrity or morals or truth or being honest or building stableness, or even making effort towards healing. So now where I'm at, I keep telling y'all, like, it's a recovery. It's not only just recovery this season, it's recovery so I can be restored, so I can now stabilize what it is that I'm building towards, not only for my lineage, but for the kids and for, the generation after us. That's the beauty of what is unresolved so that you can resolve it. The awareness around, again, don't get tricked and manipulated by most of these people just because of what you think you see on the surface. You know how much they have unresolved within their lineage that you know nothing about? And that's the thing about choosing not only yourself, but choosing a partner that is willing to heal, that is willing to go through the healing for themselves, and then be able to go through, they're going to have roadblocks, they're going to go through things. And once you see why a lot of relationships, if you want to say they failed or did not stand the test of time or just not endure, it's because they wasn't willing to heal themselves or face or take accountability and willing to work through things with, not only themselves, but with the person that they had either children with, whether it's marriage or not, because I'm not a huge fan of what modern day marriage is, so, to each their own. But that's all this is when it comes to a lot of things. A lot of us are the resolve or resolution for our lineage. That's what you are. You are here to not only just restore, revitalize, review, rebrand, recreate whether it's who you are, your image, and, your lineage, and being a representation of the patriarchal and matriarchal, but you're here to resolve a lot of those things so that you can recreate what community is, so that you can recreate what it is to live life and recreate communities, it's so many things I can go on and on and on about. And that's the beauty of it. It's worth it. I didn't say it was going to be, it gets easier. I will say that. That's the thing about when you see disharmony, then you realize how can you come out of disharmony? You have to go through it to get to the harmony. How can you get out of living in chaos so much? I had to recognize, like, I don't need to feel shame around my experience, my life, when I did not know. I had to tell someone the other day, I did not know how to love you. I didn't even know how to love myself. I didn't grow up in this. I didn't even know how to love you. I didn't know how to hold space for you. And that's why I realized we have to be honest with ourselves. We did not know how to do things. It's like I was telling someone, you keep wanting someone to go out there and do this and do that, and some of us don't even know. So it's like little kids being put out in the environment without no type of guidance. This, I'm not going to say all, but this is our society. We're pushing people out with no guidance. No, when the mothers don't have structure and security and being emotionally safe, we're pushing daughters, we're pushing sons out there that don't have no emotional stability. We're pushing them into a world where they don't feel safe in. And it's like our mothers unconsciously are pushing them out so they can try to find a sense of safety. And it's not even their fault. Your fathers doing the same thing. They're out there most of the time, depending on the experience, because some mothers have to be. But you've had a country been fueled off the fact that no one has really felt safe, emotionally safe. There's not when you reflect on the totality or the global experience of humanity, this is what the rising divine feminine aspect is, because the distorted and the false mother of that isn't a mother that's safe. She hasn't felt safe. The feminine principles and the energies haven't felt safe to express themselves or show up fully. And so this shows up in not only our mothers, it shows up in our sons who give, who bring forth the daughters and so forth. This goes on and on. And these are the mothers who raise the son. These are cycles. We're resolving unsafetyness, or the unsafety of not being safe within ourselves. A lot of you women you are restoring what it is to feel safe and to honor your intuitions. You are learning. You are restoring what it is to feel safe. And then whether you have kids or not, a lot of you still are. You had kids out of unsafetyness. I'm just making up a word. If that's a word. Yeah, you didn't know. And so a lot of your connections, or a lot of your, whether domestic violence, a lot of stuff, or dealing with impulsivity or impulsiveness, or dealing with men like that, they didn't ever feel safe. They were triggered by whatever you did, whether they knew it or not, or something that maybe had nothing to do with you. There's a lot of things we're resolving. Domestic violence. We're resolving. What else we're resolving? I'm trying to pick up on this energy. We're resolving manipulation, emotional manipulation. We're resolving illusions, spells, things that have been generational curse that have lingering through for so long, for generations. We're resolving so much that people don't even. This shit ain't no blueprint. A lot of us have a blueprint, but we are the blueprint. Like a lot of us carry the blueprint of resolution. We're here to resolve shit because we're deciding as, we won't, and our kids will live in harmony and peace or live a prosperous life. It ain't gonna, obviously y'all not gonna do it. So we ain't gonna sit here and depending on you to do shit no more. We're grateful, because that's what you have to give gratitude and grace is. It's like I'm giving gratitude to the fact of, I'm glad that they showed me this. I'm glad that they showed me them. I give grace though. But now I know how to deal with you. Now I know how to interact with you, because obviously, this is where you are. And once we realize a lot of these elders that did not evolve or choosing not to evolve, that means they're not matured emotionally. A lot of these mothers and stuff, they haven't matured. They haven't matured. I don't care how much they dress it up. I don't care what they built. They still haven't evolved internally. And that's what's been exposed. So again, this is the beauty of prioritizing our well-being now. This is the beauty of us becoming more aware and intentional. As we resolve things that are unresolved, people, there is going to come a time where it's going to be called for us to rest. And you're going to have resistance towards people like that. I'm telling you, like, just the thought of me, like, where I was creating a lot of things entrepreneurially, and how I had relatives and shit who despised that because they felt like, I told y'all this, like, they felt like you should be working hard. Your life should be hard as theirs, because that's the only way. Like, it's like no limitless. That's the only way you're gonna live in this world. Like, I didn't come here to suffer. You chose that. You had opportunities. You just didn't want to go down that road. And don't ever feel shame and guilt around that shit. They want you to feel that shame and guilt. And again, I had people throw me out. I had people pit, like, once they saw certain things that I did, and they were unhappy. They were jealous. They were envious. They were spiteful. Had nothing to do with me. It's just, again, I balanced out doing what I did to make a living and then to rest. And then I was like, you know what? I got to stay consistent and persistent through this. So that now, what I'm doing now and currently, I'm living a life where I balance out what I create and then resting, and focusing on my well-being. Because that's the thing about what the sister was saying on the video, being better, making better decisions. If I realize that a lot of them elders did not make better decisions for their well-being, I'm here to do that. If I'm realizing that this what makes me shows up fully for myself and for my tribe, then I'm going to do that. That's making better decisions. That's living better. Looking better, inwardly and outwardly. What? You ain't nobody finna make me feel guilt and ashamed for that shit. Like I tell you, I had people who had to reveal who they were. It had nothing to do with me. That's one of our most challenging things. Is like, we want to take on everybody else's emotions and insecurities when we don't have to. You don't have to take on your mom and dad, shame, or anybody else because you choose to do better. Because you are better. And it's not in that insecure way how people feel. No, I'm making better decisions. I'm living a better life. A life that you didn't want to, If I choose a life that these people feel like I should do, I would be worse off. Or, in their minds, they don't seem like I'm living better because of the route that I've taken to go through, let's say, some may call homelessness, or some may call, like, I even had people assuming that I was panhandling. Like, I had so many things, but a lot of it was distractions to keep me from my purpose, from me walking in my authenticity, to now being abundant in all aspects, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, and financially. Because I choose to be better in those positions. I choose to evolve in those aspects of life or levels in life. And so the only people who resist that and who attack it are the very people who are not choosing to do what I'm doing, or choosing to make that decision to be better. So again, what comes with that unresolved things is that you will as you resolve these things, it will show up in your body. It will show up in different ways. When you talk about unresolved emotions, that shit comes with purging, crying, and guess what? Rest comes after that immediately. But there's a conflict of interest, or there's a resistance where, I gotta go out here, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Let me tell you something. When you are in alignment with the divine, you will always be taken care of. And that's where I was I was in conflict with. I was like, bro, man, if I don't do this, man, if I don't do that. But then I asked myself, who am I doing it for? Am I doing it for somebody else because if I don't do this, I'm going to feel guilty? Man, fuck that. I had to realize, like, I got to do this for me. And I got to make these decisions with intentions, knowing that I'm doing it through integrity and morality, so that my kids don't have to question why didn't we do this, or why no. Integrity and morality is facing the very things that your mother and father did. So guess what? That's sometimes going through the certain things that they went through, but with a heightened awareness. I'm sure my mother and father, I've seen them go through things. I may have didn't hear about it, But some of them keep it in. They feel shame and guilt around, like, oh, well, I was homeless, or or they went through this, or they went through that, or they experienced some type of trauma or childhood trauma, and they never talked about it. So now that I'm not gonna feel shame and guilt around what I deserve to acknowledge, or the treatment I know I didn't deserve because they chose to stay silent and hoard it in their body. And if it leads me to my purpose, which is speaking and being financially abundant from that, because I see the bigger picture of enlightening or encouraging others to also walk an authentic path, or face the things so we can evolve together, or you want to evolve past, get away, break generational trauma, curses and shit. Yes. Yes. I'm not gonna feel guilt and shame over that. Does it come up? Yes. Does doubt come up? Yes. I'm not finna have doubt around what I'm here to do. No, I'm even more. It's gonna encourage me to be more confident in myself. And if that ruffles feathers and bothers other people, so what? They're not meant to do what I'm doing, and I'm not gonna feel guilty around it. Stay away from people like that. Stay away from people who gaslight you like that. Because again, it does get more easier. And then once you realize what you're walking into, I'm not finna feel shame and guilt around nothing. Because I'm telling you, I've been around people like that. You should be doing it. You should do this. And I'm looking at you like, you look tired of shit. You exhausted from what you've been doing for 20, 30 years. And the beauty of it is that a lot of them literally were here to pave the way. They're catalysts for what we're doing. They're catalysts. I'm not gonna feel guilty, and I'm not gonna guilt trip my son into thinking that he gotta fulfill what I didn't do. No, that's bullshit. No, that's stupid. That's ignorant. Because they all have their individual purpose, and they all have things they're here to do. And the beauty of it is us encouraging them in the best way we know how, and supporting them. And that's why it's so important to resolve things, so we can know how to go about that. And not through a way where we're forcing it and trying to pressure them into doing something that they don't want to do. And a lot of us came from generations like that, where you have a lot of people who were, they mom and dad wanted them to be second, third generation, this and this and that. Okay, that's cool and all, but when it comes, does it feel good? Does it feel authentic? Does it? And you ask yourself that. Because on a deeper level, you're going to realize, like, a lot of you are in certain settings, and you're going to realize, like, a lot of you have been driven by narcissistic templates, people, places, and environments, been in society that don't prioritize your well-being, that don't support none of that. And that's what your generations before you have been a part of. And that's what's crumbling. A lot of them have been a part of these same things. A lot of your mothers and fathers were a part of those very narcissistic templates that didn't tell them to prioritize their inner child or their imagination. They didn't tell them to prioritize, being authentic and walking in integrity. And so they were manipulated and gaslighted through their careers, and they try to think that they were going to do the same thing to us. Bullshit. No, ain't gonna happen. No. And I don't care who be mad, because I don't need no validation or acceptance from this world or nobody else. And that's the thing y'all got to come out of with that codependency shit. And stop thinking that you need your mother and father validation to be great, to be amazing. No, we all come from something greater and higher. They were just our first authoritative figures in our life, and they can either be our first bullies, they can destroy us through their words, through their actions. And that's even from being apart from us and not being, and then a mother not being honest with us. It's so many things. It's so many foundations that you got to realize that are crumbling within them, that are crumbling within us. A belief system that they don't want to accept, that is crumbling, and they've carried it along for so long that they're tired. They're tired. They're tired, emotionally, mentally, and so forth. And now that's forcing everybody to create something new. Okay, this didn't work, so what are we here to do? So that's the thing we're resolving, is the fact that this didn't work. This is the problem. And y'all are afraid to see that these elders or certain things systematically are the problem. So how do we find solution? What do we need to resolve here? What is unresolved between people, between me and my mother, me and my father, so that you don't have to keep this shit going through the generation after you? Just know that. Peace and blessings. Shalom.